There it is. There's the closing bell for New York Stock Exchange. You press that little button, that hammer goes around and around, hits the bell, ding, 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 ding. A bunch of people celebrating something. We don't know what it is. Certainly not celebrating the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which was down 500 points again today. Yeah, not 527 points. NASDAQ was up all day and ended up down a little bit, 20 on the day. The VIX came in a touch, and that is a good sign. When things quiet down, when they calm down, the VIX comes down. Gold, look at that, folks, 33 and 30 cents. It's $3,300 an ounce. I'm telling you, my first day on Fox News, I don't know, whatever, it was 15 years ago, I pulled up an ounce of gold out of my pocket. It was $600 an ounce. Ducey said, what are you going to do with that? I said, I'll never sell this. I still have every ounce of gold I ever bought. I will never sell it. 33, breaking all-time highs. Oil up $1.80, and Trump mentioned this earlier in the day when he was with Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni, that oil was down. He's right. Oil is down off the highs, off the Biden highs, and this is the reason why inflation should be tame going forward. So kind of a mixed day. S&P was just a touch higher. A very, very quiet day on the trading floor. Let's take a look outside the. That's the West Wing. There's the portico. You see the guard there, the Marine Guard there. That tells you Trump is inside the building. If Trump is not in the building, meaning inside the Oval Office, which is likely where he is, or other parts of the West Wing where a lot of the advisors do all their work. If Trump were not in that building, there wouldn't be a guard at that door. But anytime the president is inside, you'll have that guard. And the reason we're showing you this, those are sticks. We call those the sticks. There'll be a gaggle. A gaggle is when someone of interest, and this time it'll be Caroline Leavitt. We're told Caroline Leavitt will come to the sticks and gaggle, which means she'll go to those microphones. The press will kind of circle around her, and then she'll answer some questions. We're hearing that's going to happen. We'll keep an eye on that. Also interesting, slated for 4 o'clock, Trump is signing executive orders behind closed doors, which means when it's behind closed doors, there's press inside, but they do the whole thing, and maybe he answers questions or not, but we don't get it. The whole media doesn't get it, not just Red, but the whole world media. ABC doesn't get it. No one gets it until he finishes. They look at it, they decide, and then they go, boom, this is what you guys get. You all get it, and we will bring that to you immediately upon when that happens. In the meantime, just a minute or two ago, just right before the show, I had the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Ben Carson. We talked about the difference between President Trump this Holy Week, where he goes to events, he goes to the prayer breakfast, he goes and prays, he does things that show he cares about Christianity, he cares about religion, he cares about America's religious right, religious center and right, versus Joe Biden, who had a completely different take on this time of year with the LGBT community. Anyway, Dr. Ben Carson and I had a few minutes, and we'll bring that to you right now. All right, folks, let's bring in Dr. Ben Carson, former HUD secretary, but also one of the world's renowned pediatric neurosurgeons. Really great guy as well. Dr. Carson, love having you on the show. Appreciate your time. So you wrote an op-ed, and it struck me, sir, because after 4 years of Joe Biden and this whole, hat tipping and bowing to the LGBT community, the trans community, whatnot, Donald Trump this week has spent a lot of time observing Christianity in various ways. Sir, tell us why that's important to you and why it should be important to all Americans and, frankly, all humanity.
Well, also, especially when you contrast it with Easter season last year, when the Biden administration was then celebrating Transgender Day on one of the holy days of the year, where we're looking at the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ, who means so much to millions and millions of Americans, myself included. And it's so wonderful to see that in the White House. And I think President Trump actually means it. This is not show for him. I asked him several weeks ago, where are you getting all this energy from? I said, you're 78 years old. And he thought for a moment, he said, it's God. And I think he recognizes that he's there for a particular purpose, but he also recognizes that the direction of our country was very bad most recently, with all the hatred and the division and the loss of common sense, men and women's sports, all kinds of just things that make no sense to anyone. And I think part of the reason for that is because we've lost our spiritual connection. You know, we're a different country than any other country. Our founding document says that our rights come from our Creator, also known as God, and not from the government. And I think it was those values, those Judeo-Christian values, that were essential to our rise from obscurity to the pinnacle of the world in record time. That was not a coincidence.
Not a coincidence, sir, in the juxtaposition of Joe Biden's White House celebrating LGBTQ. We have some video that we're going to show from... hold that shot for a second, Ben. This is one of our producers. Hold that shot, because that pride flag, sir, should never be flanked by the American flag. Old Glory should never be seen as subservient, secondary to the pride flag. If you can go, give me that pride flag again there. Look at that. Can you believe on the North Lawn right there of the White House, no less, the pride flag? You want to fly a flag? I'm against it on the White House, sir, but never put the American flag secondary to any flag on the pride flag. Your thoughts?
It really is a slap in the face of so many people who are Bible-believing Christians, because the Bible has some pretty substantial things to say about that lifestyle. And it also mentions the fact that Jesus died for everybody. He loves everybody. But that doesn't mean that he accepts everything that everybody does. And, we need to make that distinction. I love all people. I love gay people and trans people. But it doesn't mean that I condone what the Bible says is not correct.
Mm-hmm. And Trump very, very famously said that when that bullet in Butler, Pennsylvania, missed his brain and hit his ear, took part of his ear off, he said, and he said this since then, that he believed he had a divine mission, that God wanted him to lead the nation, lead the world going forward. Have you had a conversation with him about that?
I certainly have. And, the location of the shooter, that was a chip shot. I've had opportunity to have some training with sniper shooting, and that was a chip shot, and almost impossible to miss. So clearly there was an intervention when he looked up at that slide, and it made a huge difference.
What do you think the message is to the American people? Trump kicked off Holy Week. He went to a service. He's done the prayer breakfasts. He's gone to several different occasions celebrating Christianity in this very high holiday week. What does that mean? What does that tell you the direction of, certainly in the next 4 years for the country at least?
Well, I think he's circling back to our roots, our Judeo-Christian values and roots that tell us to love your neighbor, not cancel your neighbor if they have a different yard sign. And, the United States of America is much too strong to be brought down militarily. We can, however, be destroyed from within. And he fully recognizes that and is going to be taking actions that would lead us back to the values that initiated our climb to the apex of the world.
Dr. Carson, are you interested in getting back into the administration?
No, I'm helping from behind the scenes and working hard with the American Cornerstone Institute, which is growing very significantly. And, I think the optimal situation is having federal government working with local and state governments, working with private organizations and faith-based organizations. That's when we found the most success when I was at HUD.
Well, we're going to leave it right there. Dr. Ben Carson, appreciate your time. And, have a very blessed rest of Holy Week and going forward. So thank you for joining us.
Same to you, and always great to be with you.
All right, folks. We'll keep an eye on all things at the Oval Office and the White House, and we will be back in 2.5 minutes. All right, folks, my first guest, this next guest, I should say, is the 51st Attorney General of Texas, who's now running a challenge, four-term challenge to Senator John Cornyn. Welcome, Attorney General Ken Paxton. Let's do it. All right, let's bring in the 51st Attorney General of Texas, who's now running a challenge to four-term Senator John Cornyn. Welcome, Attorney General Ken Paxton. Attorney General, just wanted to tell you how thrilled I am you're here, because you've been MAGA from the beginning, and we appreciate you. And Donald Trump has certainly shown his love of you and for you as well. And those of us who are out here watching, who's been a Trump supporter from the beginning, original MAGA, we call ourselves. You've been there from the start. Congratulations on the success. So tell us, you're going to primary John Cornyn. And by the way, I thought rhinos were extinct, certainly in the state of Texas. Apparently, they're not quite extinct yet, sir.
Well, John's been around a long time. He came in when we were just taking the state from the Democrats. And so over the last 23 years, going on 24 years, he just hasn't represented Texans the way they'd expect to be represented. Now, maybe if he were from Vermont or from Maine, it might work out. But he is not anything like Ted Cruz. He has been a big disappointment. It's time for a change after 23 years.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Ted Cruz. Is really my last question, but I'll bring it up since you brought it up. So if you win, you replace John Cornyn, you get along with Cruz. And then the relationship with Governor Abbott, could you just explain the dynamic of both of those folks with you and for us?
Yeah. So I think Ted's done an amazing job. He's obviously moving into his third term. And that's the kind of representation. What he's done, been bold, conservative, much like, what you'd expect from a Texas Republican. Greg Abbott and I have had a great relationship. He was obviously the previous attorney general and then became governor. And I've had a great relationship with him, working especially on like border issues. We worked on COVID issues, and we worked on a lot of different issues. So I feel very fortunate to have good relationships with both of them. Unfortunately, my relationship with John Cornyn has not been so good. Ever since I became Attorney General, he's pushed the other way on all kinds of different issues related to me and to my leadership.
When Trump was picking his cabinet and whatnot, he originally talked about Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General of the United States. And then for whatever reason, Matt decided he didn't want to do it, or Trump didn't want him to do it. But then Pam Bondi came along. She's there. Your name was floated very high on one of the many of the very short lists for Attorney General of the United States. Did you want that? Did you think you were going to get it? What about that?
So I didn't know. I mean, there's all kinds of names floating around. I certainly am happy in Texas, and this is kind of the direction that I wanted to go. But if Donald Trump had asked me to do it, it'd been hard to say no to him. Not necessarily because I was looking to do that job. I was not looking to do that job. I like the path that I'm on, which is up to the voters as opposed to being, controlled by other political people. So I really like the direction that I'm headed right now.
Attorney General, one of the things you proposed recently, I read that you're proposing $1,000 per day fine for any illegal who's in the country illegally. The question is how they're not going to be able to pay it. But here's a little side note to that, sidebar to that. What about the NGOs who are housing and supporting the illegals for breaking the law? What, you want to find them too?
Absolutely. Look, this is how Joe Biden did it. He basically washed the money through NGOs, because then we wouldn't really know how the money was being spent. So these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations along the border got, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they used it illegally, I believe. And we're actually in the middle of litigation with some of them right now, trying to show exactly what we believe happened, which is that they were washing money for the Biden administration, that they were participating in illegal activity of aiding and abetting illegal immigration.
Mm-hmm. And so we claw back some of the money by hitting the NGOs, finding them, and hopefully they come through. I love that idea. Another idea that we were talking with Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman from the state of Texas, has had quite, let's call her heightened rhetoric. She's got quite the mouth on her, that young lady. Not sure she can support most of her claims, and I've always offered her the opportunity to debate me anywhere, anytime, any place. Here's my point, though. She may have misappropriated some funds, some Act Blue money. Your thoughts on this, and will Texas or even the FEC, should the FEC go after Jasmine Crockett?
Look, I think they should definitely look at it. If there's an allegation that she's misused funds, it would be very appropriate for the FEC. They're the ones that govern this area. It's their job to make sure that federal political officials are following the law. So absolutely.
Oh, where does she come from, Attorney General? I mean, because she bubbled up in the last 6 months for us nationally, but you guys must have had your eye on her for a while. Was she always like this, or is this just since Trump was elected?
Honestly, I had never even heard of her until she started bubbling up, like as you say. I'd never even heard of her, and then of course she became outrageous in her comments and making fun of Abbott being in a wheelchair. I mean, it's kind of a little bit shocking and very inappropriate. Some of her comments about him and just some of the crazy things that she said. Can I ask you something?
And this is something I think is important. Is Texas firmly red? I mean, there's so many states that, Colorado went from red to purple to blue. People are trying to say that maybe California may be pushing a little. How red is Texas, sir? And the only reason why I'm asking this is because there's some things that keep happening. We go, well, Texas, really? Texas? And because I live in Florida, I'm not seeing the same things that are going on. That gun laws maybe be restricted and whatnot. Tell us about how red Texas is.
Yeah, look, I truly believe Texas has gotten more solid. I think as Joe Biden used the border for his own political purposes and ignored federal law and ignored his constitutional role, I think a lot of these communities were suffering because of it and moved more of those people in our direction. They saw what Joe Biden did with the economy. They saw what he did with the border. They saw what was going on internationally. I actually think Texas is more red today than it was, say, 4 years ago. And that's really attributable to the horrifically bad job that Joe Biden did and the hope that President Trump has given this state. I mean, I think he won by 13.5% approximately. That's a pretty darn good margin for any Republican in any state.
How red is the State House? Let's put it that way. How red? I know you have it, but there's even people in the Florida State House that Governor DeSantis believes aren't real Republicans. They're Republicans in name only.
Well, look, we definitely have a fair bit of that. Our Senate is solidly conservative Republican. We have a lieutenant governor that oversees that, and he does a very good job, Dan Patrick. And then our House, on the other hand, has been controlled by the Democrats. They figured out years ago, we finally took over the House in 2003 when I was there. They figured out how to align with a block of Republicans. So the Democrats will block vote. And I think there's 61 of them now. You need 76 votes to become Speaker, and about 20 Republicans work with the Democrats to elect one of them as Speaker. So it has been a challenge for us for the last 17 years with that particular strategy. It's very frustrating because all this good legislation comes over from the Senate. And at least in the past, we'll see what happens this time. We've got a new speaker. He claims that he's going to be conservative. I said, well, whatever you say doesn't matter. What you do is what matters. So we're going to see by the end of May whether this particular Republican, who was largely elected by the Democrats, is going to come through with our agenda.
Got it. Austin Metcalf, the young man who was killed, knifed to death by Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony had a press conference today, and Austin Metcalf's father showed up, but he was escorted out. Dallas police were called. Are you going to look into that?
So I would love to. One of the problems that we have in Texas, and I have pushed the legislature to give me the authority to look at criminal matters. But right now, the only people in Texas that can actually investigate and prosecute crimes are our local DAs. So if you look at our large cities, all of those DAs have now been elected by George Soros, and they effectively control prosecutions. The legislature can pass laws, but unless you have somebody in that role, like most states have current jurisdiction for the attorney general on criminal matters, I don't have that. I have to get a referral from a DA, and that's never going to happen in a Soros city.
Dallas being Soros. That's disturbing, especially since, I mean, we all live under the Constitution. Maybe the feds can do it under a First Amendment violation to Austin Metcalf's father being escorted out of a press conference by the guy who killed his own son. Amazing. One more thought before we go from one attorney general to another. Letitia James in New York is now under scrutiny. Looks like she's been doing the things that she was accusing Donald Trump of doing, and now there's a criminal investigator referral, at least, and maybe an investigation about to happen into Letitia James. Will we see a perp walk of an attorney general of a state like New York? Is that possible?
I think it's certainly possible. I don't know who got the referral. That's obviously pretty important. If it's somebody that's going to do their job and actually look at the facts, if she's actually done something wrong, then very likely she could do what you're talking about, do the perp walk. If they don't really do a real investigation, they cover it up, you may see it just kind of pushed aside.
Yeah. Any way they can use lawfare the way she used lawfare against Donald Trump, maybe even push it up to a federal, some sort of federal, find a way, the kind of the way Alvin Bragg found a way for Donald Trump, kind of change some rules and laws around. Possible?
Look, I think we just follow law, and if she's done something wrong, then she should be held accountable. If she hasn't, I don't like the system that the Democrats operate under, because if the rule of law doesn't mean anything to us, it clearly doesn't mean anything to them. Then we don't have a country that's, we don't have a constitution. We don't have the rule of law. The rule of law is really important, and it's really important that people are treated fairly under that law, whether they're liberal Democrats who are doing bad things or whether it's us. We should all be treated the same under the law. Spoken
properly like a true Attorney General. Attorney General Ken Paxton, state of Texas, maybe the next senator from the U.S. Senator from the state of Texas, and we can only hope so. The MAGA crowd that I represent, sir, we wish you very much luck in that election. Thank you for joining us.
I really appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
All right, sir. In the meantime, I do believe we have Mr. Steve Bannon. If he's available, I'd love to bring him in. MD, is Mr. Bannon available? There he is. There's my man, Steve Bannon.
Right here, sir.
How you doing? Steve, one of the questions in there, and I wanted to talk to you about this. One of the questions in there was on this idea of holding back money from Harvard. Now, Steve, how in the hell are the feds, how are we taxpayers financing Harvard for the tune of $2 billion over the next couple of years? This is the money Trump is holding back. When they have a $52 billion endowment, if you'll just bear with me one more second, $52 billion is the biggest endowment of any university in the world, number one. Number two, when the university has $52 billion, that means they have that cash on hand. They can invest that money. And now if they just put it in Treasury, 4% yielding Treasury bonds and notes, I do that myself, Steve, they'll take in $2.1 billion a year tax-free. Why would Harvard get a penny of taxpayer money?
I think it's, I actually thought the total number is $9 billion. I think $2 billion is just immediate that you could just jump on. I might be wrong.
No, you're right. No, I'm simply, you're right. When they invest and the market goes up, they made $9 billion. My point is they could close their eyes, stick it in treasuries and make two.
I'm saying, I think the total government exposure at the trough, maybe total of $9 billion. Maybe that's over a couple of years. Look, it's massive. None of these universities, and I've been a big, being an alum, the business school alone, I think, had a $5 billion. I'm not sure the $52 billion includes all the medical school, the law school, and the business school, because each one of the major trade schools, law, medicine, and business, each have $5 or $10 billion endowment themselves. They're just grown over time. Look, it's outrageous. Here's the thing: on both the law firms and in the universities, we're seeing a commonality. If you go and threaten to take away government money, they will fold. Now, Harvard's trying to play hardball, but, and I didn't think we should go after the Ivies first. I thought we should go after the public Ivies, which I think are more pertinent. Michigan and Madison, Wisconsin, UNC, Virginia, UVA, all that. However, if you're going to go to Harvard, you got to play hardball. You can't back down. I think they're blocking them from taking away their ability to get foreign students.
It pisses me off, Steve,
they're going to cut their security clearances.
They got students because of their race and their religious backgrounds. They're showing up and can't read at 12th grade proficiency, can't do math, and they're American students, specifically white male American students who are top of their class, 5.0 on a 4.0 scale, and can't get into Harvard, get rejection letters, and it's $59,000 a year. So many things about that makes my head explode.
I know some kids that go to the top prep schools and the all male prep schools, very tough, 4.0s, great boards, and they're told don't even apply.
Right.
It's just a waste. You're just wasting your time. You're wasting your money. So that's how bad.
Unfair.
That's how bad. But we need to look. I think the overemphasis. I think it's been overemphasized on the anti.
I don't mean to interrupt the guru, but so fine, Harvard. You want to do that, but guess what? We're going to make you pay taxes, just like every other corporation. You want to play games with picking and choosing. American people shouldn't be supporting that garbage. Sorry.
No, I think it's huge. The non-tax status and a tax-free status, all the foreign students, I think there's security clearance for the university, for people that work there. You got to play hardball here. And I think we're making a mistake by overemphasizing just the anti-Semitism, because I think that puts too much burden back on the Jewish students. I think you ought to say, hey, we're going to give you a list of 200 professors that are the woke, progressive, neo-Marxist left. We want them purged, right? We don't want your programming change, just these little programming changes, what we're asking for. We want a total purge of the faculty, and we want to purge the administrators. I think you have to play hardball. I would cut all their money off today, cut the tax-free status, take their security clearance, make it tough to insure. If you're going to go after these places, you have to go after them hard. And Rachel Maddow, they say, oh, they're going after higher education. No, we're going after the center of the propaganda in training schools for the woke progressive left, and they got to be taken apart.
And the only way you do it with some of these folks is, the almighty dollar speaks, and speaks volumes. My problem is that they have so much largesse. They have so much money. They could withstand a lot in a long time. It's just, again, the taxpayer should not be allowing them to operate tax free. Yeah.
So Eric, the commonality you see in all this, the law firms, all of it, it's taxpayer money. Once you get into this, the whole system, this is why we have massive deficits. This is why you have a $2 trillion deficit. This is how you end up spending $6.5 or $7 trillion. Everybody's at the trough. Once you cut that off of basic working class and middle class people's money, tax money, the whole thing changes. So it's absolutely outrageous. And I think we got to start playing hardball with these institutions and just press on harder. Go to the public, go to all the Ivy League schools, the Ivy adjacent, what they're called, the Duke universities, and go to the public Ivies and just cut them off, hardcore cut them off of federal money.
Love it.
And let's see how tough they are.
Love it. All right, Steve, your show. Good talking to you, my brother. I'll hopefully see you tomorrow.
Eric Bolling, thank you very much on a Holy Thursday evening.